All right. Hey, this is Ben with Local Service Business Insiders. And today we have a special guest with us. We are going to talk to Mr. Chris Petkau with the Proud Paintbrush. And I really wanted to get into some of the intricacies of, questions that you might have as a customer, potential customer, thinking about doing a painting job and answering some of the questions that might be on your ideal customer's mind. Obviously, you as a viewer would be the customer, and hopefully, Chris can shed some light on some of the questions that you may have. So, without any further ado, I'd like to introduce Mr. Chris Petkow. I'm sorry, Petkaw. I'm sorry, I've done that before with you. I apologize.
I've heard it my
Chris,
whole life, man. I used to answer to it in high school, pet cow. I've heard it my whole life. I tell people easy way to remember, pet caw like a bird. Caw, caw.
yeah, there you go. Just don't call you late for dinner, right?
That's right.
The old dad joke. Couldn't have had to throw that in there. So, Proud Paintbrush, interesting name, kind of caught my eye. If you can, just real quick, if you kind of give the viewers a little taste of where you're from and how you started and where you got to this point, and kind of give some insight into if there's any insight into the name Proud Paintbrush.
Yeah, my name's Chris Petkau. I'm the owner and operator of the Proud Paintbrush. We are a residential painting company. We focus on residential. We do a little light commercial, I would say. And the name of the company, there's kind of a happy accident maybe in some ways. When I first got into painting, it was because my cousin, he had a really successful painting company up in Vancouver, Canada, where I'm originally from, and he retired by the time he was 30. And so I was like, all right, well, let's give this a shot. And he was like, yeah, like, here's some estimates. Like, I'll send over to you. You can use my logo. You can use my name. And the name of his company was the Humble Paintbrush. And I was like, okay. And I'm like, this is Texas, though. I think we might have to switch it up. Let's do the Proud Paintbrush. And it really wasn't overthought. You know what I mean? I was like, it's Texas. It's got to be Proud Paintbrush. Didn't think about it much further than that. But then as time progressed and we started, once I, started kind of standing on my own 2 feet, got my own logo, all that kind of stuff, um, came up with the tagline, "Take pride in your home." And then as we kind of came up with that, even kind of just asking the question, what does it mean to take pride? You know what I mean? The Bible says that pride is a sin, you know what I mean? But there's a kind of a different kind of pride, a pride of self-respect that is super important for us all to have. And when you're with your home, that's where you live. It's a reflection of who you are. And so what we do is we're encouraging homeowners to take pride in their home the way that they take pride in themselves. And same thing with the guys that work for us. When I first started, like I said, I just started with me and a brush and a ladder, getting on roofs and doing all that. And I remember walking to a Walmart or whatever it was, covered in paint after a long day of work and being dirty and not feeling very proud of myself. And realizing that now we've got two crews working full time, and I want these guys to kind of see what I see for our company, which is um, we're making Sugarland beautiful. We're making houses beautiful every single day. We're taking an ugly thing and making it beautiful again, and there is something to take pride in that. And so that's really the core of the company, man. It's kind of a name that I grew into when I first started. I would walk into a Sherwin-Williams or something. What's the company name? And I almost say it sheepishly, like the Proud Paintbrush. Like now it's the Proud Paintbrush, man.
Yeah,
That's the
yeah, yeah.
name. You know what I mean? Yeah, that's kind of the story, and it's kind of evolved into a cool thing.
Yeah. So it sounds to me like that. Obviously, you take pride in in the business, and you have a value system that you and culture that you kind of push through to your subcontractors or your workers or whatever the case may be, which kind of leads me into the first question. It's a lot of questions are like, how do I choose the right contractor to paint my house, whether it be an interior or exterior a job? What are some things that you should look out for, or tips that you can kind of elaborate on that would help people in their decision making process? And I think what you just said is pretty big in that, and that is like having a very good, you know, culture system. But give me just a couple pointers on, if I'm trying to find a painting contractor, what would I look for? How would I ask about it?
Um, there's a lot of things, but what I find, especially for our clients in particular, we can serve all kinds of clients, right? So if you need to put your house on the market, you need someone to run around with a brush real quick and do some touch-ups or whatever, we can accommodate that. But our for us, whatever contractor you choose, they need to understand what it is that you want, and not everybody wants that. Like I was kind of saying, a lot of people want they want like this is an investment they're making to their home. They want it to be perfect. So the number one thing I would say is you need to make sure that your contractor understands exactly what it is that you're looking for, that he's listening to you, and that's also explicit in the contract. After that, I mean, there's real simple ones. Can they provide references? Can they provide their liability insurance? Can they provide their workers' comp? Are they a credit on the Better Business Bureau? What do their Google reviews look like? It used to be back in the day that old Chuck in the truck or whatever could start a business, and if things didn't go well after a year or two, just go ahead and change the name and bounce over to the next one. But these days, people are looking at your Google reviews. You have to be a legitimate company, and so those are things people should look at. Is the contract clear? Is there a warranty? Um, you know, um, it, and then for me, I think this maybe I've already this is a little redundant, but communication is the contract clear? Do you feel like the contractor will be able to walk through everything with you, especially when people come into your home? You know what I mean? You want to know, okay, is the project running a little bit late? If it is, maybe that's even fine, but we just need to know. And so communication.
Yeah, I think that's definitely being coming from the remodeling space and working with contractors of all different trades. I think that's probably the biggest thing is the communication piece, where I would say a vast majority of problems and issues that come up between a customer and a contractor stem from lack of communication and improper or lack of expectation as to what's to be expected. And the customer thinks A and the contractor's thinking B, and then it never works out for the contractor. Right, I mean, ultimately, unfortunately, that's the case. But um so let's get into a little bit of the X's and O's here. What are some things to consider when choosing a color? Like, this sounds like a simple question, but coming from somebody who has a very bland wardrobe, like I'm not a big I'm not a big color guy or daring, if you will. And some people, I know, they want to make a statement, but then again, how do you balance that with you know resaleability? I know if you talk to a realtor, they want everything's goes back to will somebody buy this? But how do you kind of balance that between doing what you want and doing what's kind of mainstream, if you will, that's within the box?
Oh man, it's almost to some extent, it's almost a philosophical question, almost like my wife was showing me something on TikTok that I guess kids like younger, like Gen Zers are doing now, called maximalism, where they're like with like the millennials, they did like minimalism, neutral on the walls and everything. And I see like this stuff with Gen Z where they bright different colors on the walls and really tacky stuff everywhere, and like this is what I like, so I'm doing it. And although, like, I don't know, I'm starting to sound old, I guess, although it might not be my thing, I kind of like the spirit of it. Like, they're like, put some personality into your house, you know what I mean? And I actually think that we should bring a little bit more of that mindset. It shouldn't think too much about just how to paint your house for when you're gonna sell it. You're gonna live in this home. You should enjoy it while you're there. So I saw that recently and I thought that was great. But like real practical tips. I mean, really, the best way to start is look at Pinterest, look at your neighbors, look for inspiration. Then from there, um, find a couple colors you like, but just understand that your phone is light shining into your eyes. It's not a real reference. Once you purchase that color and put it on your wall, there's going to be a variation. So kind of come up with an idea of what you're going for. Get two or three samples if you're doing two colors. get two or three of each color. I wouldn't go too much more than that because it all starts to get complicated and overwhelming and stuff like that. But once you've done your color samples, go ahead and put them around different places in the house. Whereas your natural light, it's going to look at different in different parts of the day. And then from there, man, it gets even more granular, and you can start looking at things like light reflective ratio, where different colors have a different light reflection. The brighter the color, the more it's going to suck up the colors around it. So you'd be surprised, you could have like a dark color floor with like maybe a red undertone or something in that. And your white wall that you painted, it's really popular right now to paint white on your walls, and it's going to suck up and show a lot of that red in the walls. And so these are all things that you need to take into consideration. As a contractor, I know like more than I ever thought I would know about color, and found out how complicated it is. You'd be amazed even how hard it is to get a perfect color match from a Sherwin-Williams or any paint distributor. There's kind of no such thing actually. They can get as close as possible.
It's crazy. Like I know going,
But
but not to interrupt you, but going into
mhm.
from the tile side, you can put five different white tiles next to each other, and it's amazing. Like from like a small distance, they look the same, but as you look closer, they're literally like vastly different, and they're all called the same thing. So yeah, there's a lot of truth to that.
Yep.
But like something you had mentioned to me in like our pre-call here, like you offer a service with like a design, lack of a better word, a designer that can kind of help people out.
Yeah, so those are the practical tips, and you're totally right about like a lot of the way color plays is all about juxtaposition. And it's like I said, like at a certain point, I started to reach the limit of my knowledge with all of this type of stuff. So those are all practical tips you can do. But we started having jobs that people didn't want to. The job took 9 months, or it was delayed by 9 months because they were trying to figure out the color. We also had people that like we painted their house, they made their investment into that house, and they weren't happy with the color. And it was a color that they chose, and we felt bad about that. We're like, we want you to be happy with the color, but it obviously would cost more to do it. So how do we fix that problem? And so at a certain point, I was like, what's the solution here? And so now what we're doing. Actually, for all full interior repaints and exteriors over 4,000 square feet, we're providing a free color consultation. So that means that we'll get you connected with an interior designer, and they'll take it from there. A lot of people, like you said, they're also redoing their kitchen. They're looking at tiles and stuff like that. So get that professional influence and professional advice from an interior designer who can just kind of take away the doubt. There's 1,700 colors just in the Sherwin-Williams color wheel, and really like having that someone with a professional eye that'll take the doubt from you and make you feel like you're making the right decision.
And that's part of the service that you offer. That's not like an extra thing where you're just bringing. That's part of the service, right?
Yep, exactly. It's included in, like I said, in all full interior repaints, and then we can offer it in other situations as well. But yeah, and we have a couple of different interior designers that we work with, and they do an amazing job. They have great taste, and I'll get into conversations with them and realize how much I still don't know about
Oh
colors.
yeah.
So we could do a different podcast just about that.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, you do a week of podcast. So something you just mentioned, I want to touch on. Kind of leads me to the next question. Kitchens. That's a big thing. So like I'm going through this right now myself, where my cabinets are a certain age, and we're thinking about doing some remodeling and updating. So if you can talk about the difference or the choice between painting cabinets, replacing cabinets. I know there's refacing. That's a whole nother thing. But like, what do you feel like is there like a huge price difference between the two? Like, when do you recommend painting versus replacing completely? There's the obvious questions, like if it's the cabinets are falling apart. That's goes without saying. But
Yep, yep. If your cabinets are falling apart, and if Yeah, that's the big one where obviously you'd want to replace them. After that, it just kind of depends on the situation and exactly what it is you're looking for. But but I would say, I mean, it's always going to be cheaper and more perhaps more practical to paint your cabinets. We can, for example, oak cabinets, which used to be really in, are now really out, and those cabinets can be repainted and made to be new again. So our process for that is we prime all your cabinets with an oil-based primer. That's going to make sure that any oils or anything over time is just being completely blocked out, so that when we paint with a fine finish sprayer, and we're going to just go ahead and apply a very thin 2 coats of a water-based lacquer from Sherwin-Williams. And that leaves a beautiful finish, and it's extremely durable, and it'll your cabinets are will look brand new after that. It's definitely a cheaper option than replacing, but once again, it just depends on what you're looking for. Maybe if your doors are a little bit outdated, you could just replace the doors and then paint the entire thing, and then that's a cheaper option. I find that a lot of people look at their cabinets and say, well, maybe we need to replace it, maybe we need to gut the whole kitchen, and then they wait because they don't that they know what a big investment that is. Whereas painting is a fraction of the cost, and still you can have a wonderful result. Between that and maybe changing your countertops, you could have a brand new kitchen again.
Yeah, yeah, totally. So, um, how do you this might sound like a stupid question, but how do you know? I know some cabinets are like MDF or like that particle board, versus like you mentioned an oak cabinet. Can you treat one of those like the cheaper material this as far as, do you have to do the same process if you want to paint that, or those are, I know those are very sensitive to moisture and things like that. So like I know people in bathrooms, again, going back to my remodeling knowledge, but those things tend to flake apart and fall apart in bathrooms where there's high moisture. But is that something in the kitchen where like are those paintable, if you will?
If we catch it in time, like you said, like they will like start to absorb moisture, especially like if it's had a lot of exposure and stuff like that. And once you kind of see like the MDF material start to kind of swell and stuff like that, there's no way to make it unswell. But it's not much. We kind of have a standard process for all our cabinets, and really what we do is we kind of just we throw the kitchen sink at every project we do in terms of like making sure that it's just there is no pot. So we wouldn't like do less of a process or more of a process on MDF as opposed to oak or something like that.
Right.
Same process. You want to use that oil-based primer. That's really just going to seal everything. So, MDF, it's already been painted. It's already, been sealed or whatever. But as time has passed, that paint has faded and now it's no longer protected. So that oil-based primer is going to seal it back up, give it that protection it needs, and then also create a good surface for our paint to adhere again. So. Yeah, no, I wouldn't say there's too much of a difference in the process. Oak cabinets, they have a lot of wood grain in it. We can take like wood filler and different types of material and fill all that wood grain and then make those smooth again. Some stuff like that, maybe a little bit of a different process. But other than that, it's pretty standard. With cabinets, it's going to go through a lot of wear and tear. Kitchen, all the types of stuff that a kitchen or a bathroom goes through. And so it needs to be scratch resistant, it needs to be fingerprint resistant, it needs to be easy to clean. So we just, we use Gallery from Sherwin-Williams. It's a fantastic product, and you're guaranteed to have good results with that.
Right on. And so, kind of getting again, perfect segue into another question here is surface prep, making sure that that's going to last for a long time, is like what goes into. I mean, obviously, a touch up job, you get in there with a can of paint, do what you got to do, even like a DIY type thing. But like, what do you guys? Is there surface prep? Like, what goes into surface prep, or like before the actual paint job? I mean, it's like, going back to the
Mhm.
remodeling, the tiling, it's not just putting a nice tile on the, what's behind is very important, if not more important than the tile. So like, is that the same case with paint?
Yeah, so like if it was an ex so first thing we need to do is clean the surface. So if it was an exterior, we want to pressure wash it. If it's cabinets, we want to degrease them. If it's your walls and your trim, it probably especially trim, it's good to wipe it all down just with a towel and just get any dust or anything off of there. Then the next thing to consider is that your paint needs to adhere to something. So that might mean that your walls need a light sanding so that that paint adheres. That might mean that your cabinets need a light sanding, and then we need to prime after that so that the paint adheres. With exteriors, really what we're more worried about with exteriors once everything is cleaned is we want to make sure there's no loose or flaking paint, there's no rotted wood on your exterior. Paint's not, the paint's not going to hold up on anything like that. So the surface preparation, we need to do any carpentry repairs and then make sure that the paint adheres. Other things to take into consideration is color discoloration, like any type of discoloration that could occur. So, for example, if we need to replace a piece of wood on your exterior, we need to prime that so that the once we've painted everything looks seamless. Um, if there's water damage in your drywall, we need to prime that with an oil-based stain blocking primer, something that will make sure that that won't come back again. Other than that, we need to fill the nail holes. We need to caulk all the gaps. We need to just basically make everything look seamless again. When we come through your house, by the end of it, we need to make it look brand new again. So all the prep is really the key. I mean, another part of prep, of course, is masking all your floors,
Yep.
covering all your furniture with plastic, making sure everything's prepared. And so it's not uncommon. We've done projects where we recently did a project where we painted the spindles of a handrail. So we had to mask the whole handrail, mask all the treads. We actually stained the treads. So we had to stain those first, then mask them, then just get everything prepped and ready because we have to spray those spindles. And
Yep.
I think it was something like 6 days of prep and like 2 days of painting. And so it's all about prep. If you want to, if the how good your project will turn out is entirely dependent on how much you prepped.
Right. So last question. We only got a couple minutes here, but I just want to ask you: is there anything uh, that you would want a potential customer to know that it's a question they may not know to ask? Right? Is there anything important that um, they might need to know that they just wouldn't? They'd probably run across it in the process and just kind of be a surprise to them. So anything that's upfront that you can kind of enlighten them with.
Um, I guess, man, like a lot of the questions you've already asked me have been good ones in terms of people want to know about color. They want to know what the process will be in terms of prep and stuff like that. And those are questions that people might not have known to ask. But beyond that, what I would encourage people to do when choosing a contractor in general is just is the communication element there. I know we're kind of circling back to that, but that's really what, for me, I would say is the thing is it there in that contract? Is it clear? Because that's where the problems start to emerge and where everybody has a horror story about a contractor, you know what I mean? Or at least they have a friend who has a story. And to me, that can all be solved um, with 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 people listening, the contractor really listening to the customer, and the customer feeling like the contractor really understands, and then all of that getting written again into the contract. Here's a good question is people want to know like, okay, so like Chris, you just communicated all this really well with me, but what about your painters? And so for us, we're going to take your contract and convert it into a work order where it's word for word everything that your contract that you and me have already discussed. Now that our guys have that in their work order, then at the beginning of the project, me, the client, and our lead painter will walk around everything with you and make sure that we're 100% on the same page. They've already reviewed the work order. We've already reviewed the contract, but now we're all on the same page of exactly what needs to get done. And then that makes sure that there's no room for miscommunication. So hope that answers your question.
No, it does actually. That's I would, if I can emphasize that, that's a great answer because again, going back to the remodeling days, I remember one job in particular where I sold somebody a beautiful bathroom worth of tile, and from the actual contractor to the installer, they didn't make clear which way they wanted the tile installed in the shower, and so they installed these tiles vertically versus horizontally, and the lady was in tears. So there's
Yeah.
that is so important. That's a great answer. That is so huge. So like, yeah, I'm glad you clarified that the communication between contractor and customer, but then also between contractor and installer or painter or whatever the case may be, to make sure that everything that you've talked about with the contractor gets passed on to the one who's actually, swinging the brush and doing the thing. So yeah, that's a great answer. I can't emphasize that enough. That's so important. Chris, man, I appreciate you taking the time to answer some questions this morning. Um, any parting notes? And how can people reach you? Obviously, I'm going to put some stuff here wherever you're seeing this, whether it's description, caption, show notes, whatever the case may be. How can people reach you?
You can reach us at theproudpaintbrush.com. There you can see pictures of our previous work as well as see our Google reviews. And the thing that we're most proud of is our video testimonials. You can fake a Google review, but you can't fake a video testimonial. So that's something that distinguishes us that we're really proud of. And then below that, you can see our calendar with our available dates. You can go on there and go ahead and click a spot, and that'll book you an estimate, and we can take a look at your project and see how we can help you. Or you can give me a call at 832-605-0493, and I'm happy to discuss any questions you have.
Sounds good, man. Thanks, Chris. And hopefully we'll run into you here in the Sugarland area. And maybe we'll talk to you again next time. Thanks, Chris.
Thanks a lot, Ben.
All right, man.